Okay, it's now 6 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting of the Technology and Utilities Subcommittee of the Lowell City Council to order on April 10th at 6 p.m. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Janess.
Here.
Councilor Chow.
Here.
Councilor Scott.
Here.
3 present.
All right, thank you, Mr. Clerk. This time I'd like to note that we're also joined in the chamber by Connor Baldwin, CFO for the City of Lowell, Moran Fernandez, Chief Information Officer of the City of Lowell, and Austin Ball, who's the Deputy CFO for the City of Lowell. We're here to talk about 2 items tonight. Item 1 is a discussion on the comprehensive MIS update about current and future plans for the department. And then item 2 is the ordinance for the new position of Deputy Chief Information Officer that has been referred to the subcommittee for discussion. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Fernandez so he can go through his presentation that he has prepared for us.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'd like to start off by thanking the Chair and the subcommittee members for the opportunity to meet and discuss MIS. Today's presentation is focused on who we are, how we got here, where we are going, and a proposed plan for getting us there. At its core, it's essentially about ensuring a long-term and sustainable plan for the best return on the taxpayers' technology investment, which stretches back years. In the interest of time, I'll try to go through the slides and my notes as quickly as possible to ensure enough time for questions that you might have. So as you mentioned, there's 2 specific items that we're going to discuss tonight. The MIS department. Who is MIS? The MIS department was established within the city in 1988 to perform the following: maintain, manage existing computer systems, address present future needs and implement improvements, focus on keeping ahead of ever-changing advancements of methods and technology in the information systems field. It's important to point out this was 1988. The environment was completely different. We were founded as a central clearinghouse for technology with 3 positions reporting to the city manager. So let's talk about MIS, where we came from and where we're going. In 1988, that was 36 years ago, the technology landscape was completely different. The city didn't have PCs on desktops, didn't have file servers to store files, any high-speed networks between the offices. We had multi-button phones on all the desktops. Cell phones weren't in use. The internet wasn't something that anyone here talked about or used. Wang Computers was a dominant force within the city, a major player in the computing field, and here at the city, we had a significant investment in installation of Wang hardware and software. The Wang systems ran the city's CAD 911 systems, its services, and the city's word processing, and all the financial systems for the city. Moving forward to 1993, by 1993, the country had entered a major recession, filled with economic uncertainty, and the state's unemployment nearly reached 9%. Wang had filed for bankruptcy in 1992, but the city was still heavily reliant on Wang-based systems. The police department established its own MIS team to focus on managing its Wang systems, such as the Larimore 911 dispatch and reporting systems, and was just starting to look into how to connect the cruisers in the field. It's important to note that this is a separate MIS team from the City Hall MIS department, reporting through the police department hierarchy, with City Hall taking more of a consultative role as opposed to an authoritative role in technology. This has been the case since. So even though oftentimes folks speak about MIS in police, it really is MIS in police, not City Hall MIS. Moving forward to 1998. By 1998, alarm bells were going off about year 2000, also affectionately known as Y2K, and the concerns about program code and all of the older technology systems. The city engaged vendors to conduct assessments, and the decision was made to move off of the outdated weighing technology in 1998. This meant replacing our financial systems. This meant replacing our 911 systems. As I mentioned, we were running Larimore way back when. When the MIS team was launched, Larimore was already here, so it's not a new thing. By 1998, there were some PCs starting to be installed on desktops with 15-inch tube monitors. There was a total of 7 of them in the whole city. Telecommunications-wise, there were a few cell phones in use throughout the city, but not many. Red fire call boxes were still in use throughout the city, and the fire department established its own MIS team to focus on managing its technology needs in light of Y2K. Again, as with police, this is another MIS team completely separate from the City Hall MIS department, reporting through the fire department, with City Hall taking on more of a consultative role as opposed to an authoritative role in technology. This was also around the time that the city began designing its institutional network. This is what was used to interconnect all the city buildings. While most of the leased police precincts got connected, none of the city-owned firehouses did. Why? Because no one thought to invite the fire department to the table. Why? Because there was no consolidated technology team. As a result, there was a lack of firehouse connectivity to buildings we actually owned as opposed to leased locations that eventually went away and incurred additional costs to the city. It took years to bring parity to the firehouses. Jumping ahead to 2003, I'll point that I took over as CIO for the city during mid-2002. At this time, version 2.0 of the city's website went live. It was a basic website. There were about 250 PCs installed throughout the city by now, with some 17-inch monitors. Cell phone use within the city had become common. Microsoft and a variety of other vendors introduced major changes in the way they licensed software and handled upgrades. The city's internet connection at this time, in 2003, was down all the time. I specifically remember one week, it was down for a whole week. We only discovered it because I was sending emails to the state. They weren't receiving them, and I eventually discovered that a part had broken. No one called, no one complained. It wasn't necessary. Remember the Y2K scare? Well, as a result of the Y2K scare, the city moved off of Larimore on the weighing and chose to move to a different product by Lucent Technologies, which didn't work out. One of the first projects that I was asked to spearhead when I got here was to bring Larimore back to the city, leveraging current technology. And with the installation of the institutional network that we installed 5 years earlier, the City Hall MIS department became responsible for all the network connectivity throughout the city, managing the wide area network and moving everyone forward with newer evolving technology. Moving forward to 2008. At this time, version 3.0 of the city website went live, along with online tools for citizen engagement. By then, we had online tools that allowed citizens to submit requests, the first set that we had up and running. The demands for internet connectivity surged as state and federal governments began to leverage it for more than just an informational portal. In 2008, it was estimated that 20,000 people in the United States were going online for the first time ever every single day of the calendar. Because it was so new. People were just jumping on left and right. City Hall began upgrading desktop systems, networks, and services throughout the city. The number of applications installed skyrocketed. Telecommunications-wise, City Hall MIS began rolling out voice-over IP-based telephone systems in various departments. We're talking about 2008, but it's worth noting the Apple iPhone was unveiled in 2007. By 2008, we were starting to install it here, implement it here, and roll it out within the city. The Larimore 911 CAD system was up and running for police and fire dispatch and records management. Older records continued to be accessed on an unsupported weighing system. Like police and fire, technology changes at the Career Center and the library led to each of these departments establishing their own MIS teams to focus on managing their own technology needs. And similar to the other MIS teams, they were completely separate from City Hall MIS. City Hall MIS just continued on a consultative role instead of an authoritative role in technology. Moving on to 2013, by then version 4.0 of the city website had gone live. The effects of the 2009 layoffs throughout the city still lingered. Technology demands continued to increase. The modems in the city were finally turned off. Internet connectivity was considered a necessity at this time. And City Hall MIS upgraded the wide area network to a pure fiber high-speed network, allowing us to complete upgrading all phone systems across the city onto voice over IP phones. Moving along to 2018, version 5.0 by now of the city website had gone live. Staff separations at various MIS groups led to significant loss of institutional knowledge. Not at City Hall MIS department, but in some of the other groups. Technology demands from various MIS groups increased on City Hall MIS to help fill in these blanks from all the separations. Having adopted iPhones as the standard, City Hall MIS began managing them. Moving on to 2024. The COVID pandemic was the initial wake-up call to City Hall MIS as the institutional knowledge drain across other MIS teams started to become more than just apparent. When something goes wrong with technology and things fail, as they often do, it tends to be City Hall MIS that winds up picking up the pieces, taking the blame for it, and resolving it. City Hall MIS was forced to modernize and evolve our technology environments at the drop of a hat in order to ensure the continuity of government services throughout the pandemic. Remote services, routing of telecommunications, work-from-home laptops and other equipment, and a variety of new services, all materials practically out of thin air under the guidance of City Hall MIS. Remote tools for public meetings, first via conference calls and later via Zoom, materialized out of thin air under the guidance of City Hall MIS. Technologies that City Hall MIS were working on implementing, like Microsoft 365 in the cloud, were forced to the front of the line. City Hall MIS began working even closer than we ever had in the past with the various MIS teams to ensure everyone's success. As the pandemic unfolded and City Hall MIS picked up more and more work from other teams, we started realizing the extent to which technology sprawl had taken root throughout the city. This brings us right up into the cyber-related event from last year. Now, why do we call it a cyber-related event? This is important because a lot of people call it different things, a hack, etc. A cybersecurity event or a cyber-related event is recognized and accepted by the National Cybersecurity Center as any observable occurrence related to cybersecurity that may impact an organization's operations. While COVID was a wake-up call, the cyber event was a major game changer in every way imaginable. For the City of Lowell, this was a big event as it underscored the extent to which technology had been leveraged across the entire organization, and that technology had to be shut down completely. Everything had to be wiped, then it all had to be restarted from scratch. In many cases, entire systems had to be rebuilt with limited documentation or understanding of how things worked initially because the people who had installed them or implemented them were gone. There was no documentation. There was no coordination across these teams. This represented the single biggest disruption to the city's technology in its history and continues to be an active and ongoing investigation, so I'll limit my comments about it. But as a result of the event, 2,600 plus devices had to be pulled, wiped, rebuilt, and redeployed while simultaneously shifting the workforce to the cloud 12 months ahead of schedule and concurrently overhauling and introducing a variety of new security systems and measures while completely rebuilding the entire network from the ground back up, leveraging current system best practices. Those best practices may not have been the same best practices at the time systems were installed previously. With the City Council and City Manager's support, all the MIS groups worked to prioritize public safety and financial systems while working concurrently to manage and maintain the operational continuity of critical systems and their recovery. The majority of the city's general operations were successfully restored and operational within 30 days. That's not to say all of them, but the vast majority. This recovery was a significant task, and while MIS is still working on responding to Councillor Scott's motion regarding the costs, it was significant on many levels, including the toll it took on everyone involved, and we're grateful for everyone's support through this. Incidentally, every state and federal partner we met with to date has agreed that we not only handled the event properly, but as we managed the recovery, we worked closely with them to provide feedback to help other municipalities and agencies who might find themselves dealing with similar events. Throughout the recovery process, a variety of concerns surfaced. Technology decisions which didn't align with best practices when implemented or current best practices or recommendations. Unpatched or otherwise unsecured technology. Improperly registered licensed technology and poorly inventoried technology assets and undocumented configurations. All of these concerns highlighted the erosion of centralized technology oversight, management, and delivery of services throughout the organization. Significant gaps appeared as we attempted to bring operations back online, many of which we are still struggling with. As soon as this meeting is over, we have a whole bunch of systems that are being rebooted as we're still realigning our network infrastructure. While City MIS has become responsible for core technology, the fact that so many technology teams have been allowed to chart their own course, where our oversight was viewed as consultative instead of authoritative, and with little oversight over what they were doing, resulted in major technology sprawl. All of this was exacerbated by staff changes and reductions, which led to the loss of institutional knowledge, exacerbating the difficulty in recovering from the event. This left City Hall MIS to pick up the pieces, take on additional workload and responsibilities to ensure the success of the various MIS teams, as City MIS hasn't ever been responsible for the technologies implemented by other MIS groups. That brings us to today. City Hall MIS by the numbers. These are just some numbers to give you an idea of where we are today with a couple of breakpoints over years. One of the items to point out is the number of completed work orders. In fiscal year 09, we completed 4,200 work orders. These are work orders for City Hall MIS, no one else. In fiscal year 23, we had 9,100 work orders. I should point out that the majority of the positions in City Hall MIS are specialized, so all it takes is someone calling in sick or scheduling vacation time that's due to them to delay the processing of work orders assigned to someone. The service and support demands relative to staffing are incredible. We have a large organization. We have a lot of technology that drives the organization. And between June 23 and April of 24, City Hall handled 14,000 plus work orders. We only had 11 staff in our department at that time, to give you an idea of the scope. This parallels the challenges DPW has worked with work orders that everyone's heard about, only at a different order of scale or magnitude. As you might imagine, completing work orders in a timely manner is a challenge, with many taking weeks to complete based on ever-shifting priorities. While City MIS is constantly trying new approaches to maximize our output, there's simply too many inefficient processes which we're attempting to overhaul and update. These inefficient processes have led to staff being bogged down in mundane tasks, preventing them from engaging in more meaningful work and negatively impacting morale throughout the organization. Technology demands have gone unchecked, and even with the cyber-related event, we have an inadequate security culture. During the past 36 years, there's been a rapid pace and transformative evolution of technology across all levels of municipal government, as well as many of the organizations with which we interact. Staffing changes and reductions have led to a significant loss of institutional knowledge, and technology decisions have become decentralized and gone unchecked without governance. Between COVID and the cyber-related event, MIS has come to the conclusion that the erosion of centralized and consolidated technology management, a lack of authoritative technology direction-setting capacity, and a significant increase in day-to-day priority realignment significantly impacted our ability to effectively deliver technology throughout the organization. As a result, most MIS teams are finding it difficult to keep up with the daily operational demands while simultaneously trying to advance projects that are essential. How do we move forward? How do we fix this? We don't just want to throw out all these issues. We want to present a plan, which is really what part of this update is about. City MIS recommends the following three-step plan to successfully meet the city's existing and future technology needs while maximizing the taxpayers' return on investment. First of all, reorganize and consolidate all MIS operations. Secondly, establish and fund sufficient MIS staff to support MIS operations throughout the organization. Thirdly, adopt new technology governance guidelines to help the organization move forward. I can't even begin to stress just how critical all three of these steps are. And I hope you'll forgive me for borrowing an analogy from DPW, but this is really about deferred maintenance of technology. Everyone hears about deferred maintenance. It applies in many places. It certainly applies to technology. MIS has spent a lot of time asking some questions. What's best for the organization's technology? How do we prevent making the same mistakes over and over? What can be done to prevent institutional knowledge loss? How can we position ourselves better for future interruptions, whether they be environmental, intentional, economic, or other? While there's no doubt that all of us are working hard, how can we work smarter? Technology has always made a promise to make things better. We need to deliver on that promise, but we need to work smarter, not harder. Everyone's working hard. We need to work smarter by leveraging our resources along with the technology. Reorganize. Immediately begin reorganizing into 3 primary vertical technology areas and divisions. City operations focused on security, server network, and help desk technology operations. Public safety operations focused on consolidated police, fire, 24/7 technology operations. Application operations focused on the delivery and support of applications, 311 services, and training. These 3 divisions align with the best practices found among municipal operations across the country, as well as several of the larger ones here within the Commonwealth. Here's a proposed org chart. It has the consolidation that really brings everything together. Can you imagine what we'd do if we had dedicated technology teams for public safety? What about having dedicated technology trainer for the organization to ensure that employees are trained on the technologies we use or that we roll out? This reorganization realigns the technology management and leverages administration of limited resources, reducing technology sprawl and duplication. It ensures technology decisions are consistent with best practices, secured properly, and inventoried properly. It unifies technology teams to ensure the consistent delivery of services and support. It basically consolidates positions from the various MIS teams into these new primary vertical areas, and in doing so, it consolidates public safety technology operations, allowing shared services, coverage, and support. There are several positions within each primary vertical area that are proposed as new positions. There's also positions that are proposed to be eliminated at different levels, but any proposed reduction has a potential corresponding position within the new organization. Funding. Immediately leverage ARPA funding to fund several new positions. Utilize general fund funding to fund 1 new position, offset by positions proposed for reduction. Long-term funding beyond ARPA will need to be either through the general fund or other funding sources. Funding is obviously a challenge. ARPA can assist us with it, but long-term, these are deferred technology costs that have to be addressed. The need for this reorganization is dire, and the timing of ARPA funding available to set this path in motion is a unique opportunity we'll never have again. A close assessment at public safety technology operations underscores the need to rebuild this team completely under centralized technology guidance and with additional resources to ensure that the 24/7 operational needs are met without burning anyone out. With respect to funding, we propose an initial funding shift for personnel costs during fiscal year 25 and a subsequent funding shift for ordinary expenses during fiscal year 26. As projects evolve, we hope to work together with the city's fund writers to help identify grant funding accordingly. Governance. Immediately implement a technology governance framework process which manages and controls key technology decisions to improve technology management, ensures compliance, and increase value from technology investments. Recognize that technology documentation and continuity are essential. Everything needs to be properly documented. Everything needs a plan. Governance can mean many things. In this case, it means to make sure that there is a clear technology plan in place, that proposed technologies fit into that plan, and that the plan supports the city's organizational objectives overall. This requires a commitment to technology leadership, careful assessment of technology-related policies, and appropriate staffing. The current City MIS model is not sustainable over the long term as technology and threats continue to evolve. Failing to reorganize City MIS at this time, while funding is available, will only continue to exacerbate an already untenable situation. Without a reorganization, MIS groups will continue to deploy questionable technologies and support projects leveraging overburdened resources, intensifying the loss and institutional knowledge as personnel changes occur. These recommendations we're making are based on established industry best practices. They better position the city for the future, they allow for the evolution of the MIS workforce as well as the general workforce throughout the city, and they ensure the continuity of operations with minimal institutional loss or disruption while maximizing the opportunity to allow for technology growth as technology continues to evolve. All of this is meant to ensure that we're maximizing the taxpayer's return on investment. I don't know if you'd like to discuss any of those items first, or have me just continue along with the ordinance regarding the Deputy Chief Information Officer and then come back to the presentation or questions as a whole?
Normally, I would say we should talk about one thing at a time, but I think in this case, this position ties in with all the other work, so I think it probably makes sense to do that together. I'll ask my colleagues what they think.
I'm okay with that, Mr. Chairman. Also, we consider the time frame that we have, another half an hour before this room is being utilized for another meeting, so I agree.
Okay. In that case, I'd just like to take a moment to recognize we've been joined by Councilor Eric Kitcher. So, Mr. Fernandez, go right ahead.
Thank you. I'll continue with the ordinance discussion on the Deputy Chief Information Officer. The current City Hall MIS mission statement that we've been putting out there for a while now, for years, is to provide, maintain, promote, and support a cohesive and centralized technology roadmap designed to enable city departments with the information necessary to ensure their successful operations and respective missions by focusing on the use of technology as a tool for the delivery of better government. Various technology teams across the Commonwealth and the country have seen this mission statement through the years, have shared with me they find it inspiring and they find it very well written. But this mission statement requires the right personnel in place to make it happen. While I've been Chief Information Officer for the past 22 years, the City Hall MIS team's success is based on a team of very hardworking staff, just like all the other departments are. The Deputy Chief Information Officer is the cornerstone for this entire reorganization. This technology-heavy focused position is critical for allowing the CIO to concentrate on strategic matters versus day-to-day operations and enables succession planning. Overseeing the city's technology policies, programs, and infrastructure, this position is essential for guiding the successful design and implementation of critical systems, programs, and initiatives. There have been quite a few times where city councilors have gone on record asking what they can do to support MIS. The answer is this position, this reorganization. We need this position, and we need it now. I certainly can't do it all, neither can the rest of my team. MIS appreciates the city financial officers' support, the city manager's support, and the city councilor's support. City Hall MIS can guarantee with this reorg that the taxpayers' return on investment that's been made are there. The return will be there, and it'll allow the city to navigate the ever-evolving technology future successfully. Thank you for your continued support and consideration of these proposed initiatives. Please allow me to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez, for that presentation. Briefly, I'll save my questions, but briefly, I just want to say I'm glad to see a lot of this. I feel like this, as you mentioned, does reflect best practices both in a municipality as well as more globally, any organization really, when you're looking at the technology needs of an organization. This plan is working to break down silos, to adhere to best practices, to adopt a governance framework. All of these things are key points to any organization's technology plan. And it's clear that change is needed. And I will ask if any of my colleagues want to jump in at this point. Councilor Scott.
Thank you. I'll actually just echo Councilor Janessa's sentiments. I'm really glad that you brought this this information forward. It was very helpful to me to hear the struggles that are happening within the department that I don't think I realized so much. You know, the silos that Councilor Janessa is talking about. I could see how difficult that would be. I also could see how you said, you know, you get the blame for things, but yet you don't have the control over things. And I do think that's unfair. So this was very enlightening for me to hear that. So I do support that. We've talked about it with facilities and DPW. Councilor Gitchier leading the way on that issue about how difficult it is with finger pointing, not having centralized control. So I do completely support, you know, the intentions with this, but I do have a few questions, a few concerns. Obviously, one of them using ARPA funding for recurring positions is very worrisome to me. And the other issue that I have, not an issue, but just a question, some of the positions like Career Center, MIS, I saw was in there, that will go over under, you know, a different, will their duties change, the library position, the Career Center position?
The intent is to provide them is to have them report to us under the governance umbrella, which basically means they are reporting to us. They are funded through the Career Center in the Career Center's position, and they're certainly specifically focused on Career Center work. The person that has that role right now would continue at the Career Center, but would be coming into us, would be meeting with us, joining in with us, leveraging everything we do, and falling under one governance umbrella with one set of policies, as opposed to having to establish their own policies and manage their own systems. Their network is our network. We manage it. But they have, for example, phone systems over there that can be, there are economies of scale and rolling in some of the things on their phone system with ours because they're very similar. There's a lot of ways that we can reduce costs elsewhere. The Career Center is one of them. There's also a lot of ways that we can leverage other folks to support, to extend our support. So the library is one of those. They have one person there who does 35 hours. By bringing that person under our umbrella and working with us, that just means that we can assist with supporting them in their technology needs at a better level. They've had a few people move through their technology, the technology role they have over the past couple of years. And each time someone's gone, they've lost knowledge that should have been captured and stored. It's one of the projects we're working on right now. We've implemented a system that we're working with all the technology folks to store all their information, critical information, so that if something were to happen, and I'm not talking about another cyber event, I'm talking about something as simple as someone separating from the city, and you need to access the systems that person managed. Having all that information stored in one place is a sensible approach to maintaining our technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with all of that. And I also just meant contractually. Are the duties, is this something that's open for negotiation? Are their duties changing, their management changing? How does that portion of it work? That's probably for the CFO.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. And I'd like to thank the subcommittee for taking up this matter. It's very important. A lot of, just as a quick aside, a lot of the things that the council wants us to do, that the administration wants to do, sometimes are hamstrung by these silos that Mr. Fernandez was talking about. We see this as an avenue to move forward, to more fully use technology to deliver services to residents. As it relates to some of the changes and the impacts that may have to employees in other departments, we will certainly negotiate whatever impact with the relevant bargaining unit. In many of the positions, these are ordinance positions, and so it makes it a little bit easier to incorporate them in a new governance model. But for members of Moran's team and members of many of the other technology groups in the other departments, they're already currently within the same bargaining unit, but certainly any impact we would negotiate with those collective bargaining units.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. One question I think we all have is about the funding mechanisms, particularly ARPA, and how we would move forward. So I wonder if it might make sense to recognize the CFO and ask if you could spend a little time to take us all through that.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as Councilor Scott said, it is a concern that ARPA can be a crutch in this scenario whereby it will allow us to sort of transition into this new model, but there needs to be a sustainable funding source, some of which will have to come from the general fund, some of which we will look to grants. Now, certainly in the police and fire world, there are a lot of grants available. The Commonwealth recently has taken sort of put greater importance on cybersecurity and on municipal technology, and so there are more grants available for staff or for resources than there were before, and we'll look to the research and development group in the Lowell Police Department or other existing grant writer positions to help us ease the burden in the future, but there will be a cost impact, and it's important to recognize that now, that in order to do this and in order to more fully expand our capacity for technology, we're going to have to fund that in the long term. And so we can use ARPA to bridge to bridge that gap and to mitigate the impact on the taxpayer in the short term and even the medium term by funding a number of those positions that we're going to bring on for things like the 311, some of the other technology positions that may be us rebuilding the public sector workforce as the eligible category under ARPA. And we'll use that up into the deadline of 2026. But beyond that, we are going to need to look to the general fund to finance those. And that's going to be a burden on the budget, for sure.
We have one more.
Councilor Scott.
So those 311 positions have been unfilled, correct? We haven't moved forward, so are we, looking at that as, there's going to be money in the salary reserve accounts?
That's correct. So those positions, had they been hired prior to today, would have been funded by ARPA. When we do bring that on, they will be funded by ARPA through the life of the ARPA grant. But that money is still with the ARPA Special Revenue Fund. So it is still there and available to us. We have not depleted it. However, it is still available to us until the end of the eligibility period. I'm not sure if that addresses your question.
I guess I was asking whether or not these could be funded with the unfilled position, revenues, like the surplus
Yes.
from unfilled positions.
And we will look to savings that may be achieved through attrition throughout the year or funding that may be available in the short term for those types of expenses in order to mitigate the taxpayer impact. That is certainly a part of our strategy to finance this in the long term. But we've talked about this a lot internally, the Chief Information Officer, Mr. Ball, myself, with the City Manager, in terms of, this multi-phased approach is designed as such to mitigate the impact on the taxpayer. Because we understand we can't take this all on right away, but we also recognize that this is something we have to do. The cyber incident was a wake-up call, but it is also an opportunity in a way, because there's a lot of things we need to do, that we could do, that this will unlock for us by transforming this organizational model.
Thank you. Councilor Chow.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, my ICE Director, for giving us that history and the chronology and how we come up to this point. And it's important, just for clarity, that while the public look at the MIS as for the entire city, but as you mentioned, the departments, the public safety, the library, the career center, and so forth, all still remain separate. And I do agree, along with my colleagues, there needs to be some kind of centralization, and hopefully that would lead to efficiency and actually cost saving. My question is about staffing, and if that could lead to cost saving, actually, if you were to centralize it. I'm looking at the diagram of the 2024, and I'm visual and literal. I don't know if each box represents a staff per duty. On the City Hall side, I counted 14 boxes, but there's one, I guess the 311 specialist has not been included yet, and the city application specialist. Do we have people covering that right now? That's number 2, so I'm assuming there are 2 staff in that
Yes,
category.
Council, they're funded or planned. In this 2024 slide, which is page 13, or slide 13, there's a total of 17 funded or planned for positions, of which 11 have been hired. There are positions that weren't hired, like the 311 position, because we didn't have a 311 system to work with.
Okay.
It didn't make sense to look at bringing those positions in when we were still working towards bringing those systems up. And everything got delayed because of the cyber event and because of the systems being moved and relocated. They just came back. The general systems just came back March 11th. We're waiting right now for a timeline so that we can get 311 implementation started again. However, other positions like the cybersecurity positions, we had a cybersecurity administrator, that position separated. We have a cybersecurity specialist that we're hoping to bring on board very shortly. So some of these positions have fluctuated. Many positions in all these org charts have fluctuated at some point or another.
Sure. So in short, just again for clarity, so there are currently 9 MIS staff out of 11. 11 is funded, but you have 9 current staff right now with City Hall?
There's actually 12 now.
There's 12. Okay. All right. And looking at the other departments like public safety, career center, the fire, how many MIS staff are in those departments?
Based on 24, the police department has 3 personnel, fire has 1, and the library and the career center each have 1. But this proposed reorg it's not something where we can say, oh, there's 27 people and we're going to reorg it down to 20 people. These groups have been squeezed a lot already. So for example, on police alone, there's 3 people where there used to be 5, and they're picking up the slack significantly already. We're picking up the slack significantly already because of the people that have gone. Our proposal for the overall plan is primarily focused, number 1, on public safety, because public safety has to get rebuilt. And it's a 24/7 task, and we're looking at building that out completely separately so that we can focus on the public safety need for all their operations, police and fire joined. That's something that we believe is very doable, very easily doable with the staff that we believe can be built out there. With respect to the other areas that we've proposed, applications, that's everything from 311 to Munis to the city website to a variety of other application-based things, bringing them in under one place, putting them under one, I don't want to say silo, but in one vertical so that they're working together with a leader up top coordinating them, and then operations in another vertical, which includes all the servers, the networks, cybersecurity, et cetera.
Okay, so the plan is if we were going to, funding is obviously a big concern, as we mentioned before, but if we were to move in the direction of developing the centralized MIS organization, the MIS at those various departments, only 1 staff or 2 staff anyway, they would stay there, but it's a matter of quote-unquote City Hall MIS able to provide linkages to different departments and provide service and to make it everything tied in to enhance cybersecurity?
Yes, sir, exactly. The idea is, the first idea is to say, hey, let's bring everybody under one umbrella. And in that case, many of these positions do wind up getting funded, centrally hosted through City Hall MIS. In the case of a position like the the Career Center IT person, well, that role is funded completely through state and federal funding. So that, but the idea is not to bring everybody physically here into the building. It's to have them work where they need to be. So there should be public safety personnel over at the police and fire station. And there should be enough people to provide coverage so that if somebody's out, someone's sick or on vacation, that everything isn't, it can't be done, can't be worked on. So that's why there is a proposal for, say, 2 system administrators or 2 help desk personnel. They haven't had any help desk people in years now, since the 2009 layoff.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your answers.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. One thing you just touched on is the ability for cross coverage. That's something I wanted to touch on and ask about, because obviously as IT people, we're always looking at single points of failure and looking for places to eliminate that. And that goes for systems, but it also goes for the people who you need to operate the systems. One potential benefit I see from this kind of structure is the ability to cross-train and back each other up. And I wonder if you can just speak a little bit about current state and how that looks and how that would be changed by implementing this.
The current state is tenable at best. It's not sustainable. When you look at work orders, for example, work orders are very specific to who's handling the work order. These are specialized staff. The network person is not a systems administrator, who's not a web person, who's not a desktop support person, who's not a Munis support person or a Larimore support person. While cross-training is critical, and everyone will be cross-trained within their areas and sufficiently to provide coverage when folks are out, currently, we don't have the ability to do that. There are not multiple system administrators. There are not people that can cover when folks are out, and whether it's illness or vacation or whatnot. And when we talk about public safety, it's a 24/7 operation, which really changes the dynamics completely. You have to have the coverage. If you don't have a systems administrator there and something's going on, who's gonna cover it? Well, certainly having a director in charge of the overall organization is one way, but also making sure that the personnel there to staff it correctly is another.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Gitcher, do you have anything?
Thank you, Chairman Janess. So through you to the CFO, currently, about a month ago, we asked how many positions have had ARPA funding to them, and we haven't seen that report. So we don't know that. And we're touching again on ARPA money like it's this mysterious money that can be dropped on everything we do right now. We're trying to say can be funded this way, even though, as you alluded to, it's one-time monies, and now it's concerning because then it's going to hit the tax base very shortly. Do you know how many positions touch ARPA right now that are funded through the city?
Yes.
Do you know what that number is? Could you tell us what that number is?
I would want to present a report to the council. As far as it relates to MIS, there is a system administrator that was funded by ARPA, and then the 311 function in its entirety was funded by ARPA. To touch upon the others, there are some sanitary code inspectors and the DPD that are funded by ARPA. We have the entire ARPA team, so the administrative team, Mr. Flynn, his grants manager, and the administrative assistant, and the ARPA team, and the other sort of grouping of ARPA funding that's providing regular salary and wages is within the health department. And so we've been able to expand the co-op team by funding the assistant syringe collection coordinator through ARPA, and some of the sort of clinical staff. We haven't presented the FY 2025 budget to the council yet, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we are looking to expand some of those areas. But we do have a full accounting of that. Mr. Flynn keeps that. Mr. Ball and I meet with him every week. And so, we have a very firm idea of how many are funded. It is a concern that I share because these are the things that keep me up at night. But, like any grant that the city receives, there is a time that comes when the city has to make a decision, and the council and the manager has to make a decision as to whether that function is important enough to continue and to put on the tax rolls after the grant is completed. Sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. We do always, as sort of an incidental note to that, anytime we advertise a position that is funded by a grant, it is advertised as such, so that the city retains the right when the grant is over to eliminate the position. So it's sort of advertised right up front so that the city has the option at the end. However, it is something that we're monitoring, and as we get closer to the end of the ARPA program, it's something that we're going to have more discussions about for sure.
My concern is, out of the 12 that are already currently funded down in MIS, you just alluded to 2 of them touch the ARPA, I believe. Or was it 3 out of them, 12 that are currently funded down there?
So it's the 311 director, and then the 2 311 specialists, and then I believe it's just 1 system administrator. So that's 4 positions total.
So 25% of the 12 are already touched by ARPA. So really, we're funding 8.
4.
No, I'm sorry, out of the general budget, we're funding 8. The general funding is touching 8 of them. The other 4 are picked up by
yes,
ARPA.
I'm sorry. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. So then we're looking at the org chart. When you look at the org chart, as Councilor Chow alluded to, you're trying to include police of 3, fire of 1, the Career Center of one, and Library of one. And then there's 24 altogether when you add it all together. There's 6 there. So there's 6 new positions that would be also created in this chart. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to be cautious to speak through the chair, but the positions that are in the public safety departments are currently funded within the budget.
No, I'm talking about 6 in addition to that, because you're at 12. 6 of them are now 3 are from police, 1 from fire, 1 from the Career Center, and 1 from the library. So if there's 24 and there's 12 and you added 6 that are from those places, there's a delta of 6 between the 18 and the 24 that are included in this. Am I wrong?
Counselor, can I just?
I'm just reading the org chart.
clarification. Which page are you on? Just
The moving forward reorganization chart?
page 24.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
If you count them, there's 24 positions here.
So, there's more than 24 positions, but is your question how many of them are intended to be funded through ARPA?
No, I'm getting to that question now. I'm saying that right now you have 12 in your department, right? 4 of them are ARPA. So you still only have 12. You took 3 from police, 1 from fire, right? Am I okay at that point? 1 from the Career Center, 1 from the library. So that equals 6. If you add the 12 and the 6, that's 18 altogether. So now there's 6 other positions in here that are outside of what we normally have. So there's no breakdown of the old org chart like this. As Councilor Chow pointed out, he said, okay, how many do we have? And you said there's 12 altogether currently. So if there's 12 currently, and we're taking 6 from the other 4 places, that comes to 18. Where did the other 6 number come from? I know where the Deputy Chief Information Officer comes from, so that's 1, but where are the other 5? And what is the number that we need to get to this point outside of even opera? So there's 12 positions here. We're looking at a number, and I don't know that there's a guarantee that someone's just going to hand over positions, and I don't know that they're not. And the other thing that concerns me is when you say, when an employee separates from, say, the library, we have no control over that. We should have total control over that. It should be saved at nighttime, stored. The employee should be separated from, and the city should have access to that. So there should be, I may be wrong. That's the way we do it where I am, and that's where.
I apologize, Counselor. I think we're just talking some apples and oranges here in the fruit bowl. So there's a couple of different things there. You're correct in that an employee who separates may have data and files in the system that get locked down and can be accessed subsequently. What I'm talking about in the grand scheme of this, where we're talking about MIS personnel, not general employees, because these different organizations for these different MIS groups have kind of grown up organically across these different departments, we don't know. So one of the struggles we had during the recovery process was, we didn't know what the systems were that the library was running, for example, or how they were configured, because we didn't configure them. Someone over there did. And whoever was over there had left. And there was minimal documentation. So part of governance is to establish a system that ensures that all these things are properly logged. Some people call it a run book that just says, oh, here's how these things run and how they operate and stuff, which had never been done previously. We're trying to build that out now across these groups, but it's only a consultative thing. They don't report into City Hall MIS. So if I recommend to a department who's looking to install software, oh, you need to buy X software, and they go and they buy Y software, and it fails subsequently, which is one of the things that certainly happened during the cyber event. It's a matter of, okay, now we have to come to the rescue to clean it up and fix it and figure it out, but it's because our recommendations were viewed strictly as consultative versus authoritative from a technology perspective.
With all due respect, I don't put this on you at all. Somebody has to go through a purchasing side, and someone has to go through that end. So that should all be overseen up top. And when anything to do with that comes through and goes through the purchasing side, it should come back down to MIS and say, okay, this fits within, this doesn't fit within. That's an organizational structure. And I don't disagree with you saying if someone over here is building something differently and you're not consulting and it's going through a purchasing procedure that way, there's a breakdown in our purchasing policies. That anything that touches your system, as you're saying, should be brought to you before anything can be purchased, and you should be involved in that conversation. I don't disagree with you on that end, and I do follow what you're saying is we should unify it, but that's done through purchasing. Anybody can purchase anything at any time if there's no oversight on it in any city or community, as long as they have the authority to press the button, and then there's 5 other people normally in government that have to okay every purchase. So at that point, when they start to purchase into your network, you should be notified, or MIS should be notified, okay, this branch is purchasing. Does this fit within your structure, your system? You should be notified. I don't understand how you weren't in the past, and that's why I can see how the breakdown happened in this cyber event. I don't disagree with what you're saying to me. What I'm saying is I'm looking at this whole piece here, and I'm seeing the adjustment. Over the last 3 years in our city, we've hired over 60 new positions. And I don't have the budget in front of me, but they're new positions. And I'm looking at here another 6 new positions in this structure here, in addition to the ones that are ARPA funded. So that's a total of 12 if we can get these 6 from police, fire, and switch over. You have 24 here. We had a delta of 12, and then we added 6 that are already funded in other places. There's still a delta of 6. And I'm not sure that the Career Center is just going to say, you can just take my person, and here's the funding. I would think that they would say, the network is yours. You're 100% right. You have control over it. You can do what you will with it. But I want my employee here. And I'm just concerned, and I don't disagree with your way. I want to do this on the facility side. So as Councilor Scott said, I like this idea. The funding source is scaring me because of the water department has the same issues, you know. We don't have any trainees underneath our certified operators right now. We lose one of those, we don't have water operators. That's a 24-hour operation that is more important than other public safety things. People drink that, they take showers with it. There's a lot of things that go on with it. It's probably the biggest piece to any public health safety issue we have in the city.
Councilor Getcher, I don't want to cut you off, but we do
Yeah.
lose the room at 7 o'clock.
I just wish that we could continue this talk because I think the funding pieces, I don't disagree with it. I see that there's 6 extra ones that are on top of the one that we had, so there's 5 more. I would like to see the cost of the plan in year 1.
Councilor, if I may, a couple of things, just to address a couple of points you made. With regard to the Career Center, I've already spoken to the Career Center. And we're not talking about taking their person, we're not talking about taking their funding. We're talking about them keeping their person, keeping their funding, and the person still living exactly where they are in the same office. We're talking about bringing them under the governance umbrella of one centralized authority to work with them on policy setting, on determining the direction that they're going and implementing technology and ensuring the technology that's being implemented is aligned with all the other business needs throughout the organization.
What I'm saying to you is that should already be there. There shouldn't
Councilor
be any
Getcher.
policy change that way. That's what I'm trying to say to you.
I'm sorry, we're running short on time, so Councilor Chow.
It's our system.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is a very important discussion, and you might hear different questions from different councilors here, but what I'm hearing is that everybody is supporting, at least from my understanding anyway, the centralized MIS. It's a great thing to do. And my understanding is that we're not taking away MIS professional from other department. We're looking for a way to build the centralization office and provide linkages to various departments. Just one more thing, I know we ran out of time. Number of staff, I hear different numbers from 18 to 24, but I look at the other graph, it's say 31 accountable with the new organization, 31 employees. I'm going to just leave it at that. This is not the end of the conversation about this. In order to move this forward, I'd like to continue to ask the chairman if we could continue this meeting, not end it, but to continue this meeting. So I'd like to make a motion to continue this meeting. It's a motion to continue.
Mr.
Motion to
Chairman, I just
continue
have
on the floor, so quick.
one wish through you, that if we're going to give any presentations, maybe we give it a day before so we can digest it rather than get it at the time, so it's hard to actually have good communication back and forth between all of us. It's not just this subcommittee, but a lot of them we get in the moment, and we're trying to adjust to what you're saying at the same time as we're trying to read through. If we could get these maybe a day in advance so that we could share thought, and maybe other councilors would be here if they saw something like this, because the other night, the same thing with the housing piece. If people just knew in advance, maybe they would have had more questions to it, or maybe the answers are more supportive, and we could call and get answers quicker that way. That's all. It's hard to digest this much in this period of time.
Okay, so we have a motion to continue on the floor. It has been seconded. Do you need something? Okay, so I would just ask for the next time we schedule this meeting, if we could come back, any additional information like that, if we could get it to at least the council beforehand, just so people have it to digest. And the other thing that I would ask is can we include the job description for the deputy CIO position, so we can have that for discussion when we get back together?
I just add, and just possibly just a better understanding of what positions are open, which, are new positions, just a better layout, I think, of where we are now versus where we're going, I guess. Because I'm not sure, I think a lot of these are already funded. They're just empty, they're just vacant. So I think there's a little confusion maybe there too. So, thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Clerk will be in touch to schedule the next portion of this, and I hope we can do it quickly. Thank you.